Welcome to Porsche Online School. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everybody. My dear student and viewers, all of you are well. I hope by the mercy of Almighty Allah, I am also well. Today, I would like to take a class. Here Md.Nazrul Islam, assistant teacher, Katipur Kalinagar High School, Porsche, Naugaon. My dear student, today I would like to take a class on English grammar for class 6 and 7, and today our topic is different kinds of verbs. My dear student, first of all, you have to take your pen and khata and you have to look at the screen. There are some sentences. My dear student, look at the screen. First, read the passage. I am a student. I have a hobby. My hobby is gardening. It gives me much pleasure. So, when I get time, I work in it. My dear student, you have to read the passage and you have to identify what kind of parts of speech the word written in red letters within 2 minutes. My dear students, probably you have identified what kind of parts of speech the word written in red letters. Have you understood? Yeah, fine. The word written in red letters are verb. So, today our topic is about verb. Now, my dear student, let's start our discussion about verb. You have identified the word written in red letters are verb. Have you thought what kind of verb are am, have, is, gives, get, and what? My dear student, these verbs are two kinds. Some verbs indicates action and some verbs indicate situation or state. So, in this case, we have to identify two kinds of verbs. Some are action verb and some are state or condition. So, what will be the definition of verb, or what kind of words we can call verbs and why? My dear student, please listen to me. Verb means action or situation. Look at these sentences. I am a student. I have a hobby. My hobby is gardening. For the three sentences, there are three verbs: am, have, and is. These are situation or state. So, this kind of verbs are static verb. And the next two sentences, it gives me much pleasure. Gives means one kind of action. So, when I get time, get is one kind of action, and I work in it. Work is one kind of action. So, these are action verbs. My dear student, now let's discuss about the verb in details. My dear student, look at the screen. Firstly, the verbs are indicated, or the verbs are divided into two categories. What are they? Number one, finite verb and number 2 non-finite verb. My dear student, we know what are finite verb and what are non-finite verb. My dear student, if we observe, there are two kinds of verbs. Look at the board. I want to write two examples. I eat rice. He eats rice. I ate rice. My dear student, look at the board. I have written three sentences. I eat rice, he eats rice, I ate rice. There are three sentences and there are three verbs: eat, eats and ate. So, my dear student, if the verb changes according to the subject and number, then it will be called finite verb. I would like to repeat again. If any kind of verb changes according to subject and number, then they will be called finite verb. Have you got the idea? First, I is first person and singular number, so it is used here. Secondly, he is third person singular number, so the verb is takes S form. For these cases, these are called finite verb. And if we observe or look at another example, then it will be clear what is non-finite verb. She walks she came home walking. She came home walking. Look at this sentence. She came home walking. This is another kind of verb, walking. And if we observe, then it will be find that this kind of verb cannot be changed according to subject and number. Here, she came home walking. If we change the subject in lieu of she, if we use I, then the verb will not be changed. If we use here plural form, they came home walking, this verb will not be changed according to subject and number, and only then this kind of verb is called non-finite verb. My dear student, perhaps you will be able to understand what is finite verb and what is non-finite verb. Finite verb is changeable according to or depending on subject and number, but non-finite verb will not be changed depending on the subject and person. Have you got the idea, my dear student? So, verb will be divided into mainly two kinds, finite verb and non-finite verb. And we have discussed already what is finite verb and what is infinite verb. My dear student, then look at the screen. Verb. Here, verb is divided into two categories, principal verb and auxiliary verb. All of you have known with principal verb and auxiliary verb. My dear student, so now we should know what is principal verb and what is auxiliary verb. Principal verb. What is principal verb? What is principal verb? Principal verb has its own meaning. There are two characteristics. Number one, own meaning. Own meaning. First of all, principal verb must have own meaning. And number two, there is another characteristic of principal verb can be used alone or with helping verb. My dear student, probably you have got the idea what is principal verb. Principal verb, its another name is main verb, and there are two characteristics of principal verb. First of all, it has own meaning, and second, can be used alone and with auxiliary verb or helping verb. Look at the example. He goes to school. Here goes is principal verb because it has own meaning. And next characteristic is it can be used alone. Here goes is used alone in this sentence. And secondly, it can be used with any kind of auxiliary verb or helping verb. He is going. Here go is principal verb, is auxiliary verb. So main verb or principal verb can be used with auxiliary verb, and main verb or principal verb will be used alone in sentence, and it has its own meaning. So my dear student, you have understand what is principal verb. Then auxiliary verb. What is auxiliary verb? We should know what is auxiliary verb. Auxiliary verb means helping verb. The verb that help main verb to make tense, mood or voice. These are called auxiliary verb. I would like to repeat again. Auxiliary verb is called helping verb, and auxiliary verb or helping verb helps the main verb to make or change voice, mood and tense. These are called auxiliary verb. Then, my dear student, principal verb are divided into two types or two categories. Number one, transitive verb, and number two, intransitive verb. My dear student, we should know what is transitive verb and what is intransitive verb. Transitive verb means the verb which have or has object. The transitive verb means which has any object. In other language, if we tell or if we ask the verb with what or whom, if we are able to ask the verb with what or whom, and if the answer is included in the sentence, then this verb is called transitive verb. I would like to give an example. I eat rice. Look at the board. I eat rice. This is a sentence, and it has object rice. And in another way, if we ask the verb with what or whom, the answer will be rice. What do you eat? What do you eat? The answer will be rice, and the answer is included in this sentence or after the verb. So in this case, it is transitive verb. Then another thing, intransitive verb. If the verb has no object. In other way, we can say if we are unable to ask the verb with what or whom. What or whom, if we are unable to ask the verb with what or whom, we can only ask the verb with where. And if the answer is included in the sentence or after the verb, then it will be intransitive verb. My dear student, have you got the idea? I would like to clear you by giving an example. Look at the board. He lives in Rajshahi. My dear student, look at the board. I have written a sentence. He lives in Rajshahi. Here lives is a verb, and this is principal verb because it has one meaning, and it can be used alone and it can be used with any kind of auxiliary verb. So lives is principal verb, and is it is any kind of object. There is no object. And are we able to ask the verb with what or whom? Please try to ask the verb what or whom. No, we are unable to ask the verb lives with what or whom. But we can ask the verb where. Then the answer will be in Rajshahi. Where does he live? Where does he live? Where does he live? We can ask the verb live with where. Then the answer will be in Rajshahi. So it is intransitive verb. My dear student, probably you have to understand or you are able to identify what are transitive verb and what are intransitive verb. I would like to repeat again. Transitive verb must have object and intransitive verb have no object. Number 2, if we are able to ask the verb with what or whom and the answer is included in the sentence or after the verb, then this verb will be called transitive verb. And if we are unable to ask the verb with what or whom, but we can ask the verb with where, and the answer will be included in the sentence or after the verb, then this verb will be called intransitive verb. My dear student, so if we want to identify only the verb, then it will be difficult to identify is it transitive verb or intransitive verb. I would like to give an example. Suppose play. If anyone asks you, tell me or describe me, play is a transitive verb or intransitive verb. It is very difficult to identify play is transitive verb or intransitive verb. Why not? Because we don't know it has any object. We don't know if we ask the verb play with what or whom. So it is difficult to identify it is transitive verb or intransitive verb. It may be transitive verb or intransitive verb. Both may be correct. How? Look at the board. He plays football. He plays football. This is one kind of sentence. And he plays in the field. There are two kinds of sentence using the principal verb plays. First one is he plays football. Here is object. Football is object. And we are able to ask the verb play with what? What does he play? The answer is football. So here play is transitive verb. But for this case, we are unable to ask the verb play with what or whom. But we are able to ask the verb play with where. Where does he play? The answer will be in the field. For this case, play is intransitive verb. So only verb or only seeing the verb, it is difficult to identify it is transitive verb or intransitive verb. Okay, my dear student, in the sentence when the verb is used, it will be very easier for us to identify it is transitive verb or intransitive verb, because play is both transitive verb and intransitive verb. Now another example I would like to share with you. Read. Read, my dear student, read. It is a verb also, and if we write I read a book, then it will be very easy. The read is transitive verb or intransitive verb. What do you read? The answer will be a book. So read is transitive verb. And then I read in a university. I read in a university. Here we are unable to ask the verb read with what or whom, but we are able to ask the verb read with where. Where do you read? Then the answer will be in a university. For this case, read is intransitive verb. Have you got the idea? Now, my dear student, we would like to discuss about auxiliary verb or helping verb. My dear student, auxiliary verb or helping verb will be divided into 5 categories. Number 1, be verb. Number 2, have verb. Number 3, do verb. Number 4, modal verb. And number 5, linking verb. My dear student, be verb. Be verb are 8 kinds. Am, is, are, was, were, be, being, and been. Be verb are 8 kinds. There are 8 be verbs. Am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been. My dear student, then have verb. We know have verb are 3. The number of have verb are 3. What are they? Have, has, and had. And then do verb. We know do verb are 3 in number: do, does, and did, depending on the subject and person of the sentence. Now modal verbs. There are a lot of modal verbs, but we should know some modal verbs. Can, could, may, might, shall, should, will, would, must, need, dare, ought to, have to, has to, had to, like that. These are called modal verb. And then last of all is linking verb. This is new for you, and there are some grammar book linking verb will not be included. There is a reason also. Linking verb is not another verb. It is one kind of auxiliary verb. We have discussed about be verb or have verb in the previous time. Be verb, have verb. Am, is, are, am, is, are, was, were, have, has, had. These are called be verb. And when any kind of helping verb, be verb or have verb is used as principal verb or main verb, then it will be called linking verb. So linking verb is not another kind of verb, it is one kind of auxiliary verb. So in some grammar books, linking verb will not be included. My dear student, I would like to repeat it again. When any kind of auxiliary verb is used or acts as a principal verb in a sentence, then it will be called linking verb. Suppose I am a student. Here we know am is auxiliary verb, and I am a student. In this sentence there is no main verb or principal verb. Am is used or acts as main verb or principal verb. So in this case or in this sentence, am is linking verb. Karim is a student. We know is one kind of auxiliary verb or be verb. But in this case or in this sentence, there is no main verb or principal verb in the sentence, and is used or is acts as principal verb. So in this case, is linking verb. But if we write or tell he is reading a book, for this case is not linking verb. Why? Because here main verb is present here. He is reading a book. Read is main verb, and for this case here is auxiliary verb or be verb. So in this case is not is linking verb, it is helping verb or auxiliary verb. But when we will tell he is a student, here main verb or principal is absent and is acts as principal verb. For this case is linking verb here. My dear student, probably you have to understand all kinds of verbs. First of all, verb is one kind of action or state or condition. Verbs are mainly two kinds, finite verb and non-finite verb. We have discussed already. Then verbs are divided into two categories, principal verb and auxiliary verb. Principal verb are also two kinds, transitive verb and intransitive verb. And auxiliary verb are five kinds, be verb, have verb, do verb, modal verb and linking verb. My dear student, if you have any kind of question about this verb, you will write it in the comment box, and I would like to give you the answer, and I will try my level best to give your answer. My dear student, my advice to you, always stay at home and always follow the rules of health given by our Prime Minister, and you will be keep safe yourself as well as your nearest and dearest. If you go out from home for any kind of necessity, always you should use mask. My dear student, I hope you will be well by the mercy of Allah, and soon we will meet in the real class. Thank you all. Thank you everybody.